Well, after months of pain, the best of times are on the way. With that bold declaration, the state government revealed its roadmap to freedom. But the Premier says, be warned, freedoms will only be for the fully vaccinated. Shops, pubs, gyms and hairdressers will be among the businesses to reopen. But there'll be capacity limits, mandatory masks indoors and the risk of snap restrictions. Mid-October is still the target. Some regional areas will come out of lockdown on Saturday. There are more than 1,400 new COVID cases and 5 more deaths. Tonight we have journalists in several key locations. State political reporter Ashley Raper begins our coverage.
The city has been at a standstill, but there's now a plan for the shutters to come up, the doors to swing open and for the state to start moving again. It's still at least 5 weeks away though, and heavily conditioned.
You have been warned. If you're not vaccinated, come forward and get the vaccine. Otherwise, you won't be able to participate in the many freedoms that people have.
There's no specific date for lockdown to end, simply the promise that it'll happen the Monday after the 70% target is met.
It will provide businesses and workers and families right across the state the confidence to know that there is a bright future ahead.
5 visitors will be allowed to homes, while up to 20 people can gather together outside. Area limits on people's movements will be abolished, which means holidays can happen within the state.
70% vaccination allows you to move around anywhere in the state, so long as where you go, everybody else is vaccinated.
Pubs, bars, restaurants and cafes can open, so too can shops, hairdressers and other personal services, gyms and sport facilities, including pools. The rule will be 1 person per 4 square metres inside and 2 square metres outside. For hospitality venues, drinking standing up will be allowed outdoors. There'll be a limit of 5 clients at a time at hairdressers and beauty salons. Gym classes will be capped at 20 people and masks will be mandatory at all indoor public venues, while hospitality staff will have to wear masks outdoor too. Watching sport, going to the races, as well as visiting theme parks and the zoo will be allowed again. The 4 square metre rule will apply and visitors capped at 5,000 people. Up to 500 people will be able to go to ticketed outdoor events. And cinemas, theatres, museums and galleries will reopen at 75% capacity. Both weddings and funerals will be capped at 50 people and eating and drinking must be done seated, while dancing is allowed at weddings. Places of worship will be subject to the 4 square metre rule and there'll be no singing. People should still work from home if they can, but for those who can't, masks will have to be worn in workplaces. This map for reopening applies to the entire state. There's no distinction between hotspots and non-hotspots. It's also based on the projection that cases will peak sometime next week and start decreasing. If that doesn't happen, the plan could change for certain areas.
This is all contingent on us getting case numbers down and getting control, and that we can have the opportunity to actually do things locally that may respond to outbreaks.
I do believe the government does have to release the criteria by which they'll release those 12 local government areas from further restrictions.
The Premier concedes cases will rise when the state reopens.
When you reopen, you expect an increase in case numbers. But if it's in the vaccinated population, our health system won't be troubled by that.
That's yet to be tested, so too is how the restrictions on unvaccinated people will be policed.
And Ashley is still with us. Ashley, there's a lot to look forward to, but also a lot of fine print in the detail.
Yes, Juanita, and the government still has some detail to work through. This roadmap is essentially a guide for businesses to start preparing. It's also to give people hope who need it right now that there is life beyond lockdown. The government also wants this to be viewed as step 1 because there are things that aren't included. Community sport won't recommence and some venues won't reopen. Step 2 is 80% double dose vaccination, and at that point more rules will be relaxed and there'll be more freedoms granted. But there is a lot to play out before the state gets to step 1. We don't know where case numbers will be or exactly how much pressure there will be on the hospital system 4, 5, 6 weeks from now. So the plan that was announced today, Juanita, could be altered before it's put in place sometime next month.
Ashley Raper reporting there. For businesses set to reopen, there are some challenges ahead, like making sure that all their staff are vaccinated. Let's bring in Alison Shao at Cabramatta. Alison, business owners still have a lot of questions.
Juanita, the main thing they're looking for is a specific date, but they'll have to wait for another day to hear that. In general, though, the mood here is positive and business owners are doing what they can to get ready.
The first shout isn't far away.
Oh, very excited. We have a huge group of locals who I speak to. They can't wait to see us again.
Publican Nathan Salmon staff are itching to come back, but first they'll need to get the all-important jab.
Getting enough staff vaccinated in time for opening is going to be a bit of a challenge.
But it's a challenge most businesses are happy to take on.
Anything's something at this point. As long as we have a clear goal, finally, and a path to reopening, I'm excited.
The government says the roadmap to reopening will apply statewide, but it's leaving the door open for restrictions in hotspots if necessary. That's got many in Sydney's west and southwest seeking assurances they won't be left behind.
They're also looking for certainty on another key point.
A definite date so we can go, we'll have a date that we can work toward.
Last year, Stephanie and David Boyd were forced to close their restaurant for 7 weeks following a COVID outbreak. They want the dining experience this year to be as safe as possible.
Nobody knows when that next case is going to walk through your door. For us, both having our staff fully vaccinated and only allowing people in that are fully vaccinated certainly eases our mind.
Although there's worry for staff who'll have to police the rules.
My concern is, yes, we might have, obviously patron who probably half the family's been vaccinated and the other half is not, and what do we do?
For some, just having something to look forward to is enough.
The phone's been going crazy, Instagram's been blowing up. It's going to be a pretty crazy couple of months ahead of us, but can't wait.
A sentiment that's shared across the state. Alison Shao, ABC News, Sydney.
The Deputy Premier, John Barilaro, has called it a bittersweet day for the regions. While many people will be free of the lockdown from Saturday, large parts of the state will remain under stay-at-home orders. Leah White is live for us in Byron Bay tonight. Leah, there are questions about how this is going to affect the return of school.
Juanita, there's only 1 week of Term 3 left, so the decision to return many regional kids to classrooms on Monday has caught some parents off guard. The hard border closure would prevent hundreds of students and teachers who live in Queensland from attending New South Wales schools. But cross-border commissioners for both states will hold talks about the possible return of a border bubble. As for the lockdowns lifting, it won't be a return to pre-COVID life. It's been almost a month between drinks, and those at the local pub in Suffolk Park are keen to get back behind the bar.
This is the community centre, so it's where you can turn up and, be on your own and you'll run into somebody that you know.
Staff are busy moving everything into place, ready for a return of customers this weekend.
It'll just be really good to have those regular faces back in here.
Further south in Coffs Harbour, locals are also looking forward to greater freedoms.
Just can't wait to be able to go out and sit down and have a coffee.
We're going out for dinner, yes. And going for a haircut.
But the Deputy Premier has warned those freedoms will only last as long as communities stay COVID-free.
If there is an active case in your community, you will go back into lockdown for a minimum of 14 days.
Glenn Sanders, who runs a whale-watching charter near Byron Bay, says it will take a long time to recover.
We definitely won't make up our losses for the season. We've only got a small amount of the season left. Priority for us is just to stay afloat.
Community sport is still off the cards.
It's a bit of a kick in the guts for communities. Obviously, a lot of our footy and netball clubs are the community.
New COVID cases have dashed hopes for some regions that were poised to come out of lockdown, like Narrabri, Bega, Singleton and Muswellbrook. There are 24 new cases in the state's west, 4 in the far west and 3 in the south. Illawarra Shoalhaven had 23 new infections, Central Coast 22 and Hunter New England 12.
It'd be good to come out of lockdown, but we haven't endured it this long just to open back up to let COVID into the city.
The clear message from the government to regions wanting a future free of lockdowns is for people to get vaccinated. Leah White, ABC News, Byron Bay.
The government's plan to reopen relies on enough people rolling up their sleeves. Amy Greenbank has been exploring the state's vaccination rates. Amy, how are we tracking?
Juanita, more than 114,000 doses were delivered across the state yesterday. It means more than 76% of people aged 16 and over have at least some protection, and almost 44% are fully vaccinated. Those numbers are much higher for the over 50s and the over 70s. And we can see from this graph that the vaccination rate has started to slow over the past fortnight. So the Premier is pleading with people to keep coming forward for a jab. The government's expecting to reach the 70% double dose target by the middle of next month. But some predict if we can keep up the pace, we'll get there even sooner. Juanita.
Amy Greenbank, thank you.